Thanks for joining us here on Fox43.com and Fox 43 Plus. I'm Evan Forrester with Fox 43 News. We have developing news out of Cumberland County, where in just a couple of moments, the county district attorney will be hosting a news conference on two people arrested and charged for a deadly shooting that happened in Carlisle in the year 2020. That was in July of 2020. The Paul Laney died at the scene of an incident after suffering multiple gunshot wounds, which also involved a car crash here at the intersection of Northwest Street and West Penn Street in the borough of Carlisle. Laney was behind the wheel of one of the vehicles involved. Authorities also later learned that a passenger riding with Laney had also been shot in the incident. The passenger fled from the vehicle before police arrived and was taken to an area hospital by friends. Just more than a month ago, two people, Rochita Mobley of Carlisle and Warren Bennett II of Jacksonville, were both arrested on murder charges, accusing them of shooting and killing Laney. Cumberland County District Attorney Seán McCormack says today's news conference will be regarding the arraignment of both Mobley and Bennett. I want to give you a live look inside. There's the district attorney. We're going to listen in. Again, Seán McCormack, the district attorney of Cumberland County, to talk about today's arraignment.
Okay, well, we may as well get started. I know you guys have busy days. Good afternoon. My name is Seán McCormack. I'm the district attorney here in Cumberland County. Today I announce the unsealing of grand jury indictments charging Warren Bennett II and Rochita Mobley with the July 2nd, 2020 murder of Paul Laney in Carlisle Borough. On September 24th of 2025, the 16th Cumberland County Indicting Grand Jury returned an indictment charging Warren Bennett II with first-degree murder, third-degree murder, aggravated assault, and criminal use of a communication facility. Then, on October 29th of 2025, the indicting grand jury charged Rochita Mobley with first-degree murder as an accomplice, third-degree murder as an accomplice, aggravated assault as accomplice, criminal use of a communication facility, perjury, and obstruction of justice. The root of the events that led up to Paul Laney's death can be traced several years prior and involve ongoing disputes between two groups of people who either lived or frequented the Carlisle area. One past incident in particular involved the shooting death of DJ Harris in June of 2016. DJ Harris was killed inside the Haynes Stackfield American Legion here in Carlisle. An associate of Paul Laney, the victim in our case, Rocky Anderson, is currently serving a state prison sentence for that murder. On the evening of July 1st, 2020, Paul Laney came to Carlisle and ultimately visited the Haynes Stackfield American Legion, where DJ Harris had been killed 4 years prior. On this night, while in the Legion, Paul Laney was utilizing Facebook Live to publicly advertise his presence in Carlisle and the fact that he was at the Legion in particular. While at the Legion, he occupied the same booth that DJ Harris had been killed in 4 years prior. Some people present inside the Legion, including defendant Rochita Mobley, became offended by Paul Laney's actions and had some words with him. When Paul Laney left the Legion, it was after midnight on July 2nd of 2020. The grand jury made the following factual findings in support of their indictment. They found that Paul Laney was shot and killed on July 2nd of 2020 in his car in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, near the American Legion post. His death was ruled to be a homicide. Rochita Mobley was inside the Legion prior to the shooting and did engage in a verbal confrontation with Laney regarding his mockery of the murder of DJ Harris. Mobley was the grand jury found that Mobley was communicating by text message and phone calls with Warren Bennett II in the time period of July 1st to July 2nd of 2020. It was determined and presented to the grand jury that Bennett was using a phone with a particular phone number that was identified during our investigation, and that phone we linked to Warren Bennett. One of the ways the grand jury found that phone was linked to Warren Bennett that was used both before and after the homicide, including at some point in time in the future beyond the July of 2020 homicide, that phone number was found to have called a prisoner in the state correctional prisons. By tracing that phone number, we were able to trace the recording of that phone call at the prison and later identified the caller as being Warren Bennett. Rochita Mobley was aware that Bennett was in the area of the Legion and that Bennett did interact with her at the door of the Legion on that night. Bennett did wait outside the area of the Legion, in the vicinity of the Legion, not necessarily directly outside, but in the vicinity of the Legion. The grand jury found that Bennett ultimately approached Laney's vehicle and fired shots from a 9mm handgun into the vehicle with the intent to kill Paul Laney. The grand jury also found that Warren Bennett was aware that Bashi Bailey was accompanying Paul Laney that evening and was also at the Legion. And the grand jury found that Warren Bennett was aware that Bashi Bailey would also likely be injured and killed when he fired his handgun into the vehicle where Bashi Bailey was the passenger, Paul Laney was the driver. Paul Laney sustained fatal gunshot wounds. Bashi Bailey sustained serious bodily injury as a result of this shooting. The grand jury further found, as it relates to defendant Rochita Mobley, that her actions assisted with the commission of the homicide, that Mobley was aware that Bennett wanted to harm Laney when she communicated with him about Paul Laney's whereabouts. Mobley also testified twice before two different grand juries. She testified before the 14th investigating grand jury, and then a number of years later testified before the 16th investigating grand jury. And the grand jury specifically found that she did provide false or misleading testimony while under oath. That gives rise to the perjury charge and to the obstructing justice charge that she has in addition to the homicide and aggravated assault charges. I want to caution at this time that the facts that I was just going through are facts that the grand jury relied upon to indict both Rochita Mobley and Warren Bennett. However, at this time, they are mere allegations, and both defendants are considered to be innocent until proven in a court of law. I want to thank, first of all, the Carlisle Police Department, who have been working this case since July 2nd of 2020. I specifically want to thank Chief Taro Landis for his leadership in guiding this investigation. I have with me Detective Thomas Dolan, who has been the lead investigator on this case from day one, who has worked tirelessly. I've had numerous conversations with him. I also want to thank, I know Detective Chris Miller is here, Detective Ryan Menner is here, I want to thank, at some point in time as this investigation was going on and it became what people a lot of times call a cold case, our office, our county detectives, I have Detective John Mays, has been very important in this investigation, along with Gordon Goodrow. Gordon Goodrow is a co-affiant along with Detective Dolan with these charges. This was a long investigation. This was an investigation that we have thrown every tool that we could think of at. I've often said this isn't the first cold case that I've been involved with in my career. And I've often said, long after the initial press reports and information that is put out when someone is killed in particular, long after that all fades, there are two groups of people that remember what happened and continue to ask questions. One group is the group here, the police. The other group is the family. And I want to thank Paul Laney's family for their patience through this process. And I know there were times that you guys felt impatient. And there are a lot of times on the law enforcement side, we're not allowed to provide the information that the family wants because we're afraid if we simply say, this is our whole case, it may jeopardize our ability to get to this point. So I thank you again for your patience and your support as we've gone through this. As I indicated, this case went through the grand jury. In my office, she's no longer in my office, but former senior assistant Nicole Vito worked very hard on this case for a number of years. And then when Ms. Vito left, Chief Deputy District Attorney Jen Robinson took over this case, and she has shepherded it to this point here today and presented this case before the grand jury. I also want to thank our senior victim advocate, Lisa Vertical, who has been that buffer between us and the family. Many times our victim advocates don't get the proper credit that they deserve for all the work that they do as part of this team. And team is the key to solving these types of cases. It doesn't matter whose name's on a criminal complaint. It doesn't matter which jurisdiction gets credit for it. The key is that in the end, that justice is served. And we are taking those steps towards serving that justice here today. But I do caution, we still have to go through the criminal process. We are still at the beginning of the criminal process. There's still a lot ahead. So I ask for your continued patience, and I will try at this time to answer any questions that you have. As I indicated, I do have some copies of the two charging documents and the indictments to pass out. They are now public documents. They were sealed up to this point. Both Rochita Mobley and Warren Bennett were arraigned this morning before Judge Peck. They are both sitting in prison currently without any bail because they face a lifetime sentence, and under Pennsylvania's Constitution, anyone facing a lifetime sentence is not eligible for bail. It is my understanding that Rochita Mobley's first court appearance will be March 2nd of 2026 before Judge Peck, and that Warren Bennett's first court appearance will be March 3rd of 2026 before Judge Peck. Judge Christy Lee Peck is the judge that is assigned to this case, and as I previously indicated, Jen Robinson is the Assistant District Attorney or Chief Deputy District Attorney in my office who will be prosecuting this case. The other thing I caution is I will take some questions. I've gone over many of the facts that are in the indictment. There are certain things that I am not allowed to talk about until they become public, and really we hold those facts until they're publicly presented in court so that there is a fair adjudication in this case. But I certainly would answer any potential questions that you might have at this time.
Was there a relationship between the two groups, that being Mobley and Bennett and Laney and the person who was in the car as well? Was there a relationship between those two groups?
I think what you'll see when you read through the indictment, there is a series of events that occurred. I just highlighted the one involving the killing of DJ Harris, but there is a link between. Carlisle's not a huge city. It's a small borough, and everybody knows everybody, so to speak. And there is that familiarity of a link. Yes.
You said that there was intent to kill that night. How many shots were fired into the vehicle?
I understand that Paul Laney, and I don't want to upset the family, but Paul Laney had three gunshot wounds, and at least one gunshot wound to Blashy Bailey, who was the passenger in the car. Whether there were more shots or not, that'll come out in court.
You said it's been a long investigation. What are some of the factors that have contributed to lengthening that investigation?
Well, I mean, so the one example I gave of finding a phone number and then trying to attach that phone number potentially, I mean, we have a lot of phone numbers, trying to attach that phone number potentially to a particular person, and then to be able to find the needle in the haystack, so to speak, that this phone was also used to call someone in the state prison system, and then to backtrack. That's the type of work that I'm talking about that was done in this case. We have forensics, we have interviews. Any case involves lots of interviews. The grand jury process itself is a formal type of interview where you bring witnesses in, you ask questions before the grand jury. The grand jury indicates maybe some questions that they'd like to have answers to. And that's, utilizing a grand jury is, saved for these types of cases, these complicated cases that you kind of have an idea of what might have occurred, but you don't have a solid picture, so you utilize the grand jury to pull it all together. I will indicate, although we had charges formally arraigned today in this case, this investigation is not over, and it will not be over until this case is finished before a jury, if it ever gets to that point. Anytime we're making an arrest, the arrest is not the end of the case. There's always a continuing investigation because you may discover additional information. The fact that this may be publicized today may cause somebody to remember something from that night. And we're always open to new information if anybody has new information.
You mentioned the connection between the phone calls of the two charged individuals. Were there any other pieces of information that came, for example, from like Crime Stoppers, from that post that was put out, or any other tips that helped identify these two individuals?
What I can say is, I'll answer that generally. Any information that's come in, we've vetted, and sometimes information that has come in has led to other information, maybe not even the information that was intended by the person who gave us the information. So it's always valuable, and there were some things that have developed over the years that have led us to this point. And like I said, unfortunately, and I think it's the right way to do it, I can't get into every little detail of the case as much as I may want to lay it all out for you. One, it's not public and it's not fair to the people who are charged. And two, the proper place to hear all of the evidence is in front of a jury.
You said there were numerous investigating juries. What made it so difficult to get to this point for the indictment today?
I want to be careful how I answer things. Not every one of the reasons you use a grand jury is not every person that has information is cooperative. And to get people to come in and be cooperative and to talk to you, if an officer simply walks up to somebody on the street and starts asking them questions, that's different than being given a subpoena and being summoned into a grand jury where you are required to answer questions. So that's where the power of the grand jury is, the ability to have people, compel them to testify and to compel them to tell you what they know. And now that I think about it, I really left out another group, and that's the grand jurors. I want to thank them for all the hours that they have put into this case. Not only did the sitting grand jury review testimony, live testimony that was presented before them, but they also did the work of going back to the last grand jury that looked at this case and going through those testimony and stuff to pull this whole case together.
And that was just the 16th and 14th?
The 16th and 14th, yeah. They were the two grand juries this was put before.
Can you clarify the phone conversation a little bit more? Like when was the individual incarcerated, and then when, like what was the timeline for that?
It was years later, wasn't it? Or was it a year later?
Yeah, at least.
It was at least, there's a period of time.
Right.
There's a period of time. I mean, there's a lot of times information that we have and we don't know how it relates to things, and it takes time to sift through all the different pieces of evidence, and sometimes when you're trying to put that puzzle together, it looks like you're fitting the right pieces in, and then this one stubborn piece doesn't seem to fit, and suddenly you have to realize that maybe it doesn't fit because it doesn't belong in that place. And you've got to kind of back off. You can't always have one theory of a case and only follow that one theory. You have to be able to have an open mind and kind of let the evidence lead you where it's going. Any other questions? I want to thank you for covering this here today, and I appreciate everything that you guys do all the time. So thank you very much. And I have some of those papers up here if you want. Thank you, guys.
You've been watching Cumberland County District Attorney Seán McCormack announcing details from the unsealing of a grand jury indictment against Warren Bennett II and Rochita Mobley connected to the shooting death of Paul Laney in the summer of 2020 in Carlisle. He announced the indictment charged Warren Bennett with first and third degree murder and Rochita Mobley with first and third degree murder as an accomplice, both also facing additional criminal charges. McCormack says the grand jury heard information that the shooting death was the result of years of ongoing disputes between the victim and the suspects, including the prior murder of a man named DJ Harris in 2016 inside an American Legion post. The district attorney says the grand jury heard testimony that the suspects were angry that Laney was mocking the death of Harris inside an American Legion post and that Laney knew the man who killed Harris. Warren and Mobley apparently later allegedly shot and killed Laney inside his car in Carlisle. The district attorney says it was a long investigation, and now after more than 5 years, 2 people are facing charges for Paul Laney's killing. They were formally arraigned today, and since they are charged with murder, they're being held in the Cumberland County Prison without bail. The DA says the investigation, though, does continue. We want to thank you for joining us here on Fox43.com and on the Fox 43 Plus app. We'll have more about today's news conference in Cumberland County coming up on Fox 43 News.